Welcome everyone, this is Laurie Seymour. We'll take a few minutes to allow people to gather in, and we'll be starting in just 2 or 3 minutes. For those of you just joining, we're going to start in another moment or two. Just want to give people a few more moments to join in. Okay, everybody, welcome. We'll just let people join as they do, but this is Laurie Seymour, and I wanted to take this opportunity to give you a hearty welcome. Leon Sickles is with me, and you'll hear from him in just a bit. Leon and I do the Baca Journey, work with the Baca Journey together, and we are just delighted to have this opportunity with you with this webinar to take this time, this hour, to get you thinking about your own growth and your own possibilities, perhaps in some new ways. So that being said, as a kind of a general outline, I want to do a couple little bits of housekeeping. Sheila, so you already found the chat box, and thank you very much for letting me know about the volume. Hopefully you are getting it now. And you have the ability on the sidebar with the chat box to do both public and private messages. There's a little arrow to the right where it says allow both public and private messages. You can choose whether you want to send a message just to the presenters, or you would like to send an open message, perhaps an open question or a comment that everybody can see. So please feel free to do that. We'll be kind of collecting questions to address at the end. We may take a few minutes in between to try and address some of those questions as well. So with that being said, again, I do want to let you know that I'm very excited to be welcoming you here. it's an interesting time. It's an interesting time in the world because there's so much that feels like it's changing and so much that feels like we are being called to be with in a different way in our own lives. And the idea of becoming an inner researcher is about really being more of who you want to be in your life. I assume that no one that is coming here is a beginner. You know, you're not a beginner in living life. But everybody has a different experience of doing inner research, of looking into themselves. Some people, this is something that is completely familiar and the way that they live their lives. Other people, maybe it's something you touch into now and again. And for still others, it might be something you haven't really considered, but there's something that intrigues you about this enough to join in. So with that understanding, we're gearing this to everyone, so that everyone can find something that they can connect with and use in your own life. We know that life is full of next steps. There's always next steps. It's really that life is a series of next steps, if we want to think about it that way, that there's always something new to learn. And your input into how we unfold with this is going to be very important, because we've been working in this way for 30 years, believe it or not. And I know some of you who are on the webinar today have been on that same journey. For Leon and for me, it's a really natural way of being with life to be an inner researcher. And whether or not it's natural for you or not, you know, maybe this is the time that you begin. Because why shouldn't every moment of life feel magical? The opportunity is there. It's here. The opportunity to see life in a way that is grand and glorious, even in the midst of all of the challenges that we encounter in every day. It's not saying that those challenges are going to disappear if you become an inner researcher. It's that you can discover a different way of being with those challenges, a way that opens new doors. So I want to take a couple of moments just to introduce myself. I said I'm Laurie Seymour, but that's my name. Just a little bit about my own journey. I've always felt like there was more to life and more to me than my family acknowledged, that I could even really connect with. But it's like every day I lived life with that sense of there's something else. So I took the path of psychology, became a psychotherapist, and all of those associated things to try and find out what that was. But I still felt some kind of an inner core of emptiness. And it was in discovering a teacher named Dawn and beginning to work with her that I started discovering the parts of me that I could call the core, where I could connect with my own experience of unconditional love. And I don't mean with another person, but merely within myself. And to feel a grounding within myself that took me into any situation that I'd encountered in such a way that I learned how to be with that, so that I didn't fall apart, that I could always find a way to discover what was new, to discover what it was I needed to do next, to discover more about who I am. And that journey has continued for me for, as I said earlier, some 30 plus years from that point. So that's a little bit about me. I started the Baka journey about 4 years ago, and Leon joined in with that, and we have been working in this way with the Baca journey and putting out something that is a way of looking at life during this past 4 years. So I wanted to, before I continue, just take a moment for Leon to share himself.
Thank you, Laurie. I'm assuming that you can hear me because I haven't heard otherwise. I'm Leon Sickles. I grew up in the Philadelphia area, and my experience of life was probably similar to Laurie's and maybe to many of you, in that I felt growing up that I wasn't quite being understood or heard. Maybe I couldn't articulate things well. Maybe I didn't know what was going on within myself. But there was this part of me that always felt incomplete and in many respects didn't feel happy with my life because I just didn't understand what was going on, not only in the world outside of me, because plenty of people had plenty of opinions, but also within me. And I said, first I want a quiet mind. That was one of my goals. And then after that, I said, I've got two lingering questions. One was, what is love? What is love? I didn't really understand it because you have a relationship with brothers and sisters and parents and friends. And each of those is different. They're different qualities. Some we feel better for knowing somebody. Others, it's a source of adversity. And then the other was, what is truth? So I embarked on this venture actually in my 20s, which was more than 30 years ago, and started to say, I want to live life differently. There's so much more that I'm not recognizing. There's so much more to it, and I know that life is a progression of experiences, but what am I learning from the experiences? So, like you and Laurie and most of the listeners, I started out by saying, is something missing in my life? So the next slide addresses that from from some examples of something missing in your life. Laurie, can you forward to the next?
I was just going to actually touch base from that and just mention that the Friday Focus appears all over the world, and right now it's been read by over 8 million people, if you can believe that, worldwide. So, Leon, go ahead and speak to that which
Sure.
You might feel is missing.
Well, there are parts of my life that I realized were not in balance, and I knew that there were times when I was pulled further out of balance, but that I could have exploded into emotion or becoming pensive or whatever. There was a reaction with life. I noticed that there was lots of drama, and there still is that I witness with other people, or lots of conflict. And I kept saying, but I don't understand. Where is this all coming from? Life generally is okay, but I know there's so much more. I want to have a sense of purpose with the actions. I want to feel related to what I'm doing. And I want to receive something deep down so that I feel satisfied with what I'm doing. In short, if I had to pick a bottom line, I want to be more comfortable with who I am. Now, remember that we each have thoughts and dialogues that go on within us day in, day out. And with some people, it's more constant than others, but within our mind are lots of scenarios and stories and situations, some of which serve us and some of which take away from our forward movement. So, can your inner thoughts and dialogues help you to navigate through life? That's always that lingering question. So, Laurie, what if? What if you learn to work more effectively with life? What if you could have more clarity in your decisions and actions? What if you knew you were making the right decisions and developed that trust and confidence within yourself that the next step forward or the action you were taking was what you needed to do? And what if you could maintain balance with the challenges in life?
Because life isn't about brain power, you know. We've been taught to think it is, but it's about so much more. Inner research, in the way that we're talking about it, is something that takes your decisions and actions into your own hands. It takes it away from any kind of outside influence, from an outside belief system, from something you may have been taught but don't deep down in your own inner being really believe. Inner research then moves you away from outside opinions to your own inner world. It starts to shift the way you learn, because instead of learning from the way that we grew up, from our parents, from the way we learned in school, which is from the outside in. And I'm not saying that that's not useful, important, helpful, but at some point the shift, when we make that, is about learning from the inside out, from going inside of ourselves and discovering what's there, discovering more about who we are. So it accesses information from that place of balance that Leon was talking about before. And that's the place of inner knowledge. It brings you to a point of clarity, living in this way, so that you can take action that you feel aligned with, inside and out in the world. I'm sure that some of you, because this is something very familiar to me, have the experience where you do something in life, but you don't feel like you're really connected to it. You don't feel like it's something that represents who you really are. It's like it's not your best self. As you start to move in the world through inner research, you'll feel more of that balance, that alignment.
One of the things that I recognized was when I started looking inside, it was an unfamiliar world. That there were stories in my mind, there were scenarios I would fabricate, all of which were based on fear and influences from the past, whether they were family opinions, whether they were friends' opinions, whether they were teachers' opinions. A lot of them had formed like a film over my objectivity and over my clarity of action. So all of a sudden I'm shifting from that outside world and everything that is said to me, and I'm starting to go inside to say, well, what do I want? What is important to me? What do I need to do? So if being an inner researcher initially is very unfamiliar territory, and I guess that's the main point I'm making here, if you don't have the experience of being an inner researcher, it is something new when you take the steps to becoming an inner researcher. It's unknown territory. We've had training throughout our lives that have told us to live the world outside and that those opinions are all that matter, when in fact it's how we feel, what our own clarity is, what our own discernment brings us from the outside information, and how we bring it into new patterning so that what is within us is the dialogue, is the exchange to give us clarity. You're changing the way you work with yourself. Therefore, it takes time, it takes exposure, it takes experience. At some point, that unfamiliar becomes familiar. Have you ever just wanted to say something that you knew was true and you stopped yourself? That's no longer necessary because you're exploring living life more effectively and more expansively. So you drop some of that fear. You drop some of that desire to be approved of. New ideas begin to spring forward. Creative action can take place. You've expanded. You're more effective. Life then is becoming more dynamic. You're better engaged. You feel like you're a part of things. So again, why shouldn't every moment of your life feel magical?
So, an explorer, an inner explorer, an inner researcher is an explorer who's always ready for something new to discover. And I think it takes that. Being an inner researcher takes that willingness to both know and look for what is new. Are you ready? Are you ready for that? Is that something you want in your life? Because life as an inner researcher can become your new way of living. Inner research then requires you being curious about yourself. If you're judgmental about what you're discovering, if you're feeling judgment, any judgment about yourself, that's just going to get in the way. If you think about it, judgment stops curiosity. They can't live in the same house. It's also recognizing that there is a reliable resource that's inside of you that's available. That's that inner knowledge. And it's available to each of us. It's not like I used to believe that some people had that and other people didn't. It's just that I didn't know how to make that connection. But every one of us has that. And it is indeed reliable. It's something when you practice this, because it takes practice. It's not something that you're going to leave this call and say, well, now I know how to do it, and well, wait a minute, I don't know how to do this, or I don't know if I can trust it. It takes practice. It takes some time. Because as I mentioned before, Leah and I have been living in this way for over 30 years. And it didn't come overnight. It's not going to take you 30 years. You're all faster than we were. It's your inside environment, your inner environment, that holds the key to living in this way. How? Leon?
Well, that's a good question. One of the things that I know is, and I just wanted to expand a moment on what Lori said, was it's like anything else. You don't learn a sport overnight. You don't become educated from books if you don't read a book. However, this is an everyday experience. It is about testing the waters. It is about a dance that occurs between your inner self and how it expresses outward. So your inner environment is the key to this, and how you express through your inner environment and the questions. You have a mental body and a feeling body. And the mental body is very different from that feeling body. If you imagine that you're standing over a hot stove, your brain is saying, I'm not going to touch that red hot burner. And your feeling body, as you reach towards it, says, there is no way I'm going to get burned unless I touch this. So they're very different. Now, your mental body is basically full of constructs. They're thoughts, beliefs, judgments. Mental constructs about who you are, mental constructs about what something else is, about what life is, about what you think it needs to be, and what you think you need to do. These are largely residues from emotional experiences to life. They're emotional reactions that create the thoughts. Beliefs may be related to how you grew up, where you grew up, experiences you've had, judgments you've formed. Basically, it is the way you have addressed problems and experiences in the past and the conclusions that you have created based on those experiences. Now, the feeling body is a little different than that, because the feeling body unlocks awareness of unknown aspects of you. The feeling body has an amazing capacity because the feeling body also gives you information. It acts like a barometer. When I was using the example of the stove, with a barometer, as the temperature goes up, your awareness comes into play. You're receiving nonverbal communications as sensory input. That's why when you go to touch that hot burner, your sensing mechanisms quiver and they scream at you, pull your hand back. It's a nonverbal communication. There is energy moving from one body to another, and it brings your attention to another level of communication that is present within you and is an integral part of who you are. When you're having a dialogue with somebody, have you ever noticed that the tone, either yours or theirs, has an impact, has an effect on what you think? If you're upset about something, there may be a lot more information going in your mind, but what you're feeling is that anger moving forward. That's the feeling body expressing. The words are coming through the mental body. Now, if you reverse that scenario and somebody is upset and talking to you, you feel physical reactions. You may have mental constructs, but you feel physical reactions. Your body quivers, as an example, or your body just wants to run and get out of the room, away from the situation. Now, have you ever noticed that you're watching somebody and they're saying one thing? They're having a whole dialogue with you, and their dialogue says yes, 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 and at the same time they're shaking their head no. Well, that body language is giving you information. And chances are the actions that that person will take will not align with what you're being told. So that unseen world, that feeling body, that barometer that is your physical body, can give you information that sometimes is easy to decode. And other times it may not be. You may have to do inner research. The point is that you want your body, you want this feeling body to give you questions that you can then answer in a very quiet place, which is that internal researcher, the explorer within you. So know that this is a focus. This is a way of living. This is living from the inside out.
I wanted to add something to that, Leon, for a moment. Thinking of a situation of going to a party at a close friend's house. And maybe you're the first to arrive and they're very happily greeting you, or at least they seem to be happily greeting you. And the house is all decked out, and the drinks are off to the side, and the food's at another table, and you're excited to be there. But suddenly you start feeling something in the pit of your stomach, and you don't know what it is. You just feel something. Maybe it's a tightness, maybe it's a queasiness. Something feels not quite right. They're still greeting you in the same way they were. They look like they're happy to see you. So it's not on the level of body language that you're picking something else up. It's on that energetic level that Leon mentioned, moving from one body to another. You're picking something up, and your feeling body is your sensing mechanism. It's your barometer. It gives you all sorts of information. And perhaps your friends just had a major blowout just before you arrived. So they're happy to see you, but the energy in the room is saying, we're not so sure we like each other. We're not so sure we really want to do this. We're upset. And you feel that. So know that your feeling body has incredible capacity to research and to discover all sorts of things and to pick up all sorts of things.
And I just want to add to that that your feeling body is your guide. It is that part of you that is objective. And it's objective because it gives you more information. You may hear yourself dialoguing mentally in addition to what your feeling body is saying. But the point is that when your feeling body experiences something, it's the perfect time to start asking questions within you. Don't worry about the outside world, the inside world. Let the inside world give you indications. Let it give you information, because that's where the accuracy is. The mental body will bring an emotional component in that is based on past experience. That's why it's so important to recognize that you have an inner barometer. Notice your different body sensations. Notice when you're attracted to something. Notice when you're repelled. Notice when you're feeling heavy, when you're hot, when you feel peaceful. Each of those has something associated with it, but it's learning what that body feeling is, learning that that barometer gives you information. You may walk into a room, as Laurie said, where it's a party, and all of a sudden you feel that angst that existed between the couples, and you're so excited to be there, and all of a sudden, in a moment, the energy is gone. It's like somebody unplugged you. Consider that to be, as Laurie said, a residue or something that is left over or behind the scenes that hasn't shifted yet. Also notice that there are times when you feel spacey, other times when you feel grounded, where you just know your body is attached in every way, shape, and form. Notice when you feel a sense of lightness versus when you come in and feel very heavy, like there's a big obligation that you're carrying on your shoulders. The point is, what we want to do is move towards a point where we recognize all this and our inner barometer is giving us information so that we move back into a place of balance. For it's in balance that you can make decisions that allow you to take the actions towards your next step.
So, what does this mean? Are you curious? I love that curious cat. What would you discover if you were to become an inner researcher, or to bring that more fully into your life? And I know sometimes our language uses words that seem to indicate it's either or. And really what we're saying is becoming more of that, bringing that into an everyday reality for you. Well, there's a dynamic relationship between curiosity, between being curious about yourself, about life, and creativity. Your curiosity is the lifeblood of your growth. And that's really important to me. When I can be curious about myself rather than judgmental, I know that what matters to me more than anything else is discovering what's really going on in a moment, discovering what's really true in a moment. That's the thing that's most important. So consider right now, take a moment within yourself and ask yourself, are there any questions you need to ask about your life right now? And this is just for between you and you. You know when that there are situations that aren't the way you'd like them, or just something more you want to discover, another step, another aspect of a situation that you want to discover.
Have you ever been in a situation where something is going on and you're asking, how should I participate? Well, maybe one of the questions is there a different potential to this situation? Is there something more that can happen than what I see in front of me? Imagine if the world worked that way. imagine how we would see a different potential in different situations. Do you see why an interconnection is so important? Because it's that filters out the noise from the outside. I'm not saying we don't get tested, and I'm not saying that we don't have situations, but there is so much more to discover. Because sometimes there will be situations that you need to walk away from. But other times there will be situations where it is your strength, your commitment to life, your commitment to what needs to happen next that allows you to discover there is so much more available in every day. There's more to discover, and there are more actions to take. That's why I love a map, because a map is something that you can go in any direction. But if you know where you want to go, it's a lot easier to get there. So remember, there's so much more to discover in every situation.
That willingness to discover is what unlocks your potential. Because engaging in life as an inner researcher is your way to freedom, is the road that we have to take to feel free in our own lives. And if there's any situation in your life right now where you're not feeling free, it's simply to start to look at what are the questions I need to ask? How do I need to move next in my life? Engaging in the way that we're suggesting can bring some of those answers to you, So, what's next? We said this is really the path of the adventurer in life. We've all had so many questions about how life works and about how to sustain our inner connection. Are you interested in how to make life work, and how to make this your own? Leon and I have been working for the last probably year or so on writing a book about all of this. And the Friday Focus pieces that go out every week, the What If posts that go out, all are around you discovering more about who you are and about being a kind of a catalyst for that. And that's because that's been the thing that's been most important to me in my life. Is it important to you? And we're looking at what's next. We are looking at creating another series, or creating a series. We are in the process of designing that. But your input is what's really going to help form that or help finalize that. Because we want to make sure, as we're planning anything that comes next, we want to make sure that we address your questions, that we look at where are you, and what are the things that you're most intrigued with, you're most challenged by, you most want to discover.
So are you ready to be on stage, to be the star of your own life? Remember, I love this little rocker. He's so cute. But think of the freedom that he has and how he just enjoys playing his guitar and being a little bit of a ham, making everybody laugh, singing his heart out, even if it isn't on key. He's having fun. Life is about having fun. Life is about exploring. Life is about being an adventurer. Now, I'm not saying you have to go out and run through the forests in the Amazon to check every snake that's ever been bred. What I'm saying is that in your everyday life, there is so much more available and so much more that you can experience and so much greater an impact that you can have and that others can have on you. So remember, this is your path to discovery. What we can do is provide the setting, we can provide some counsel, we can give you tools to start stepping into more of who you are. Join us in discovering who you are, what you can do, and more important, what you want to do. Because a lot of times we hold ourselves back from what we want to do. We're a star, so why shouldn't it shine?
That is so, so important to me. Thank you, Leon. That's it. I know that I never felt comfortable shining my own light, at least growing up. I think I hid out more than I was willing to be seen. And every time I put myself on the stage of life, no matter what that stage is, I feel myself more alive. I feel myself more me. And there's so much that I receive in that. It's not being a star on somebody else's stage. It's being a star on the stage of life, and it's your own life. So we want to open this up to questions. We most of the people I think that are in this group, we had a large sign up, but as you know, any people's time gets away from them. So for those of you who have joined us today, we hope you've had an opportunity to download the ebook that we've created, and that you started working with some of those experiences. Because what those experiences are about are all a way, in a very simple, hopefully very fun way, to shift perspectives, to open new doors, to get out of a particular way of seeing something, because there's always something more. That's the beauty of life. There's always something more. Even when we feel like, oh my God, I'm stuck in the, the box with the bars, and really, if we just peek outside the bars, we might discover, oh, wait a minute, I can find a way to slip through those bars, and life is expanding as I do that. So in opening it up to questions, to your questions, feel free to use that chat box to ask any questions you might have of us. We've had a couple of questions that had come in beforehand. And one, we'll start with that while you're maybe formulating your questions, seeing if there's something you want to ask. Oh, I forgot about this slide. Join us to continue your discovery. One of the pictures of what we're creating is that as you explore that bigger picture of yourself, is to also create an opportunity to connect with others that are on a similar journey. Sometimes we feel like we're so alone. I felt that anyway. And in the ability to connect with other people that are similarly wanting to discover more or are discovering more, it takes it out of that place of feeling alone. So one question that came in earlier was about what is the next step? What if I want to apply this more in my life? And Leon touched on this, so I think I'm going to turn this one over to you, Leon. It was about asking questions of yourself.
Well, one of the things that has been so important to me over the years is really taking quiet time where I can ask questions. And it can be from different situations. I always was blessed with seeing the potential in other people, but often ignored my own potential. And what it allowed me to do was, when I sit and get quiet, was to sit down and say, with a pad and a pen, what questions do I have? What questions do I have about life? What questions do I have about situations? But I did a little experiment once, and one of these is actually in the ebook, which was for some reason I had lived in Ottawa for about a year and a half. And I would pull out a map, and I've been all over the world and able to read maps, but I couldn't read the map of Ottawa. And I said, oh my God, I've got to find a better way to get around this city, because I just can't seem to connect with my map. So in getting quiet, I came up with a solution. And the solution was every time I pulled up to a stop sign or an intersection, as long as I knew where I was headed at the end, which may have been to an appointment, or maybe I was had to go a particular place to get something accomplished. What I would do is say, okay, I'm at the stop sign. What do I feel like doing? Do I go straight? Do I turn left? Do I turn right? The point in doing this has to do with sharpening that voice and building that trust within you. And I always found that I ended up where I needed to be at the right time. And that quite often, if there was an accident, I may hear it on the radio, but by the time I get there, either it's gone or I've gone around it without ever knowing. So I was always fascinated by that. So writing and learning what questions to ask is a crucial element. Another crucial element is learning how to relax your body so that more and more information is available. We don't traditionally take that time out every day. We're bombarded with so many things we think we need to do, and sometimes, in fact, we need to get them all done. But the point is, there is always that time we can have with ourselves to bring us back to that deeper part of ourselves to take time out. So I see there are a couple questions there, Laurie.
Just one moment. I'm answering one of them. Well, actually, I can answer it. I don't have to answer it. In the chat box, I can answer it live. Jeffrey had asked, oh no, actually it was a private question. Jeffrey asked about downloading the ebook. For those people who were already subscribed to the Baca Journey newsletter, which comes out weekly, there was an invitation to download that. You just had to respond back just letting us know that you wanted it so that we didn't send it without you actually wanting it. So just send us an email if you're already a subscriber. And if you're not already a subscriber, it just takes becoming a subscriber, just signing up for the newsletter that comes weekly, and then you will, in response to that sign up, you'll receive the link to download the ebook. And we're so interested in your experiences. A lot of people have been sharing their experiences of doing the, I don't want to call them exercises. We've really designed them to be more experiences. They're opportunities to explore. So those are the ways that are available to get that that ebook.
And one of the things I do want to say about the book is we set it up so that there are 7 experiences. You can literally pick one a day and take out 5, 10, 15 minutes to just explore what that experience is. And there's nothing to stop you from repeating them over again. But the whole idea is to experience more of your connection with yourself.
There's another question about getting quiet. Most people think about meditation or mindfulness, and while I'm a Turiya meditation teacher, this is really about just taking time in your day to become quiet within yourself. If your focus is even during this time of the webinar is, oops, I got to check email, oops, what am I going to make for dinner, what's going on over here in the back corner, it takes away from you being able to discover. So the question that has come, and it's come in many forms, about learning how to get quiet is to take some time. I've seen people, because I've been a meditation teacher for many, many years, and people say, oh, I don't know how to quiet my thoughts. don't perhaps start out by thinking you have to quiet your thoughts. Take a few moments in your day, and it's helpful to do that in the beginning of the day before you get going with all the things of life, as they always are. Maybe you get up a few minutes earlier than everybody else in your family, and take that time to just sit and breathe and settle your body. It's the time to notice, back to the slide that had all of the words about, are you hot, are you grounded, are you heavy, are you feeling nauseous, are you feeling freaked out, are you upset? What do you notice in your body? And if you can be with that and take a few breaths to settle yourself, to say, I can attend to anything else that I have, any concerns, I can attend to those in a few moments. But right now, this is time for me. And that's what's so important, is it's time for you. I don't want anything else to get in the way of having that time with myself. It's so valuable that I don't feel like I would know what to do with my day without having that. Because in that quiet time, go ahead, Leon.
What I was going to say is that one of the things that I routinely do is when I take the quiet time, I not only look at kind of what's happened either the previous day or even a few hours before, just to really appreciate how my life has moved since taking the time out to do this. I don't jump to answer the cell phone. I don't rush to let the dogs out. More often than not, they're just right in the feeling of me being quiet. And sometimes they even snore in the process. But what it allows me to do is kind of open the floodgates. And when there's a thought that comes in, maybe of a situation I'm not happy with, I let that thought be there. And I don't try and question that thought right away, because sometimes I may feel angst, or I may feel, oh my God, it's a situation I just can't deal with. And the moment I let that go and then I switch into, well, looking at that situation, what's my next step? All of a sudden I've brought it to a point of clarity. And sometimes I'll jot down exactly what that next step is. And then I may revisit that later. But often what I've done is, without knowing it, pave the way for the next action to occur. Go ahead, Lori.
Just jumping off from that, Leon, if there's a situation in life that I am unsure about, I don't know how to address, I might take a little quiet time before I go to bed at night and settle my body in preparation for going to sleep, but also in preparation for letting that time of sleep almost seed the answers. So that can become your creative time even while you're sleeping. And I think we'll take one more question that came in, and it's about handling situations when they come up when you get upset, when you automatically get upset. And for me, going back to the mental body has to do with, as Leon said earlier, the residue that comes from emotional situations. When I find that my emotions are all churned up in reaction to something, what I know is that it may be something old, it may be simply that something more I need to discover here, but I know I'm not going to get to know anything new. I'm not going to be able to become that inner researcher until I can start to quiet my body. So that's why that learning how to quiet oneself is so key. It's that willingness to say, okay, yes, I am upset. It's not about shoving it aside or trying to bury it or ignore it, but it's saying, and I also know that there's a part of me that's bigger than this upset. There's more to me than simply this upset. And I want to connect with that bigger, deeper, fuller, richer part of me in order to discover what's really going on here. What's the truth of a situation? I might be in the middle of an angry scenario in reaction to something my husband's done. But I know about me, and I hope he knows about me too, that what's most important to me is to discover what's really true. Not blaming him, not blaming myself, not keeping that cycle of emotions going, but going into another dimension of what's going on. Anything you want to add to that, Leon?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about one of the key words that was there was perspectives. You know, we all look at things differently. And somewhere in between, especially in relationships, is the bridge. Because it's the bridge that allows communications to continue to succeed and allows for a next step to be revealed. So in order to get to that point, there are always steps. And sometimes it's just taking a situation, bringing it to a point of calm, and letting the next step come to you or come to your partner. And it's not always a situation where you have to do something right away. But you don't realize that until you get quiet. And you say, okay, what needs to happen? What do I need to do? You've already looked at, geez, you know, how does this relate to my own life? What do I need to do with it? And sometimes I have found that the problem is already solved before I need to take an action. I think that's one of the blessings of it, that there is, just as we take our steps through this, we've set, I'm going to call it, we've set an energy in motion. And that energy has ways of sorting things out that we don't always understand.
And understanding isn't always necessary, is it, Leon?
That goes back to that slide about brain power.
Exactly.
This is really beyond brain power. Because when we get into brain power, we really do want to try and control a situation, or we have an agenda that says we have to have a particular outcome. When in fact, sometimes we don't need to be involved at all.
We can step aside.
We can step aside and let something else occur.
But that's only possible if we detach from what the outcome needs to look like.
And detachment is a point of balance. That's not ignoring something. That's just letting it come to a point of balance.
Yes, indeed. Well, with that, I want to thank you all for being part of this. It's been an amazing experience for me to be able to share this with you, a delightful experience, and we'll look forward to joining with you on our next adventure, and we'll let you know when and where that will be.
Also, if you want copies of the presentation, send an email to the Baka Journey. And we'll make
Actually, as soon as this is all packaged up, it automatically in the background gets all packaged up into a video, and you will get a link to that, I think, within the next hour. So you don't even need to do anything. Isn't that grand?
How the world has changed. Well, thank you for attending this webinar, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.